Lyndsey Maddox didn't apply for the role that she wanted. She sold herself into it. And now, years later, she's the CEO of Digital Third Coast, leading a growing agency while the founders are still there. It's a super interesting succession story. So this one's about what happens when you bet on yourself and then you grow into the responsibility that comes with it. I'm Bryon Morrison. Let's get to the leaders list.
Everything is happening through these screens.
How are we getting the most out of that person?
I want to see this thing grow long term.
Amazing story. You have such a unique perspective on that.
Schedule a 2-week vacation.
I applaud those models.
Undervalue.
Secure your digital footprint as well.
Why were they even put in place in the first place?
Only the most adaptable survive.
Let's get to the leaders list.
Lyndsey Maddox, thank you for joining us on the leaders list.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, beautiful Chi-Town. You're the CEO of Digital Third Coast, and we're thrilled to gain some insights from you today. And so, I think it's probably best that we just start off with you tell us a little bit about Digital Third Coast and your path. I think you have a really interesting path on how you got to the big seat, the big job there.
Thank you. So Digital Third Coast was founded 18 years ago, August of 2007. I joined the team in early 2012, so I am 14 years in. I joined the team as the Director of Business Development. My background is in sales, and I heard about this thing called SEO and thought it would be lovely if the phone would ring the other way. So reached out to the team. George and Taylor and Nathan are the founding members of the company. And I said, I don't know how you're doing what you're doing, but I would like to sell it. What do you think about that? And joined the team, fell in love with this agency. We offer SEO and paid media marketing. Those have changed a lot in 14 years, but the end goal remains the same, which is to grow businesses. And I moved into the CEO seat about 2.5 years ago now, largely because I just fell in love with everything we were doing here.
That's awesome. So I've got two paths that I'm interested in. One, just in general, like SEO, like you said, has changed and is changing drastically with AI. And so I'm curious about that. But more importantly, I think everybody would be interested in how on earth did you sold yourself into the firm just to say, like, look, I'd like to go sell this and work with you, but then took the CEO role. And the founders are still involved in the company, right?
That's right.
So talk a little bit about that process, because I think that's super interesting to people just to understand, how did you go through it? So I'll just let you take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the initial outreach to the agency when I was young and presumptuous and maybe a little more ballsy than was appropriate for my tenure. It was largely about, even if I didn't fully understand this thing, I fully understood the value of it, right? This was something that had innate value to anyone working in a sales role, that it could generate leads instead of cold calling or the cold emailing or the outreach, the day-to-day pieces. And I think the passion for learning how it worked is what made me a good fit. How did I become the CEO? At some point, I wasn't just selling. In fact, really early on, I closed a deal that they were like, no, we can't do this. And one of the founders actually said to me, like, you have to tell them no. And I said, why? And he said, we can't make a measurable difference for this business. We could do all the SEO in the world. And because of the product and the price point and the way they were structured, they would always be spending more with us than they could ever get in return. And I was enamored with that because I had never been told only sell to people that we can do great work for. I had just my whole life been told to sell things.
Right.
Yeah.
That's such a great point. So the founders actually helped you recognize the real value of what you were selling. And that was the end result, right? Not just the sale itself.
That's right. Yes, absolutely.
That's a cool experience. And kudos to the founder, right?
100%.
That's
100%.
kind of the way it's supposed to go. But,
Yes.
like instead what tends to happen is all the salespeople just get blamed for selling bad deals. And then they go, by the way, keep doing it. We just need more revenue.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And this is a team. It's a small team. And so if I bring in a deal that is a bad fit in any direction, difficult personality, bad business model, something that just feels kind of icky, then I'm going to hear about it, not just from the client who thinks I overpromised, underdelivered, but also from the team member who's going, why are you making me do this? I don't want to.
Yeah. I love the technical term icky. That's good.
Yes. Yeah. We all know what that is, right? Something's icky here. Yeah.
No, we know. It's just not right. Something's not right. But that's awesome that you, so I didn't mean to take you off path. So you recognize that, and then that kind of changed your mindset around business development. And that was step one. What was the next step in the process?
Yes. I think over time, as that equally weighted import of bringing in new business and making sure it was business my team could and wanted to support, made me end up kind of being a natural leader then in how do we make sure we're delivering efficiently and effectively? What trainings does our team need? What things can we go out and get? What pieces do we need to build up internally? What tools, what systems, what things are going to help this team do a better job for this client? And over time, we continue to grow. I think, as a small business, everybody wears a lot of hats. At some point, we sat down to define, what are the roles and responsibilities? Who's really in charge of what in here? Because we were all just getting things done, right? And that's when we found out that I was the CEO.
So, okay. So let's talk about that. You hit this point where you started recognizing, hey, we're all just we're really good. We all care. We're all invested. We all get stuff done.
Yes.
But you knew that there was a better way to do it, right?
Yes.
And did that come from outside counsel, or did you guys recognize that internally and go, hey, I know something's wrong, so let's just step back and think about it?
Combination of both. We had a moment where we thought we're building the bus while we put the wheels on, right? Yep. We're driving down the road and a wheel fell off. Who is supposed to get that wheel, right? And we're going oh my gosh, right? It's exciting, and you're right. We're all invested. We're all aspiring towards a common goal. And at the same time, we're starting to get in each other's way, or someone's saying hey, I need X. And we're looking at each other are you going to do that one? Oh, that's me. Okay. Got it. Right. And so we hired outside counsel. We brought in a coach to help us navigate how we work with each other, how we work with our team, how we work with our clients, and work together over the course of a year to really better define which butt belonged in which seat.
It's so smart, Lyndsey, because, there's some of that's ego. Some of that is not knowing how to work on the business versus in the business. Most of us get into the business because we're just really good at some practice, but really understanding how to make the business better is usually a different process. So that's smart that you brought somebody in. What were some of the big components that you worked on? I would guess there's probably work style, personality assessment.
Exactly right.
That was a part of it?
One of the things that motivate each of us, and it made that exercise is something I love for education, and I love to hear how we are thinking differently, right? But it's actually really useful. I think there's a lot of voodoo around personality tests. There's a sense of okay, right? What do we really need this? But that moment when we worked through, this is why you said that thing, because you're coming at it from this angle and I'm coming at it and with three people from three different angles, there's an inevitable conflict in any new process development. And that's where we were saying, okay, who just owns this process because we can't all own it, or we're going to get stuck in the, do we do it A or do we do it B? And then nothing gets done, right? Which is the worst possible outcome. Nobody wants that. So learning about how each other's mindsets were working, and it wasn't, I'm here to disagree with you, right? It was just, here's how I solve problems. Here's how I solve problems. What do we do next?
And so what naturally comes with that also is process, right? Because, and some people take this the wrong way. They map every single thing and they stop the business and they think they've got to get that right. But it's, the bigger thing is understanding, I think this way, you think this way, and we are at a scale and size where we have to kind of outline a clear process of what's the best way to leverage each talent. Right?
Absolutely. And while we can certainly consult each other and benefit from each other's varying skill sets, we can't make every decision by committee. It just takes too long. It slows everything down. And if we have to figure out who the committee is and who then is the decider in the committee every time, we are, we're just burning hours on things that we could spend a little time on up front and move a little quicker.
Yeah, it's always a delicate balance between, improving the business and navel gazing.
Yes.
We're just constantly, we're talking to ourselves too much.
We're just sitting here talking about what we're going to do if we ever start working again. Yeah.
Right. It's going to be so great.
Yes.
Okay. So that's awesome. You went through that process. And it's important to point out the other founders are still involved in the business, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. One of my founders is our chief marketing and product officer. I think of him as like the visionary behind the brand and the services that we've built and changed. And we started this conversation talking about things changing. It's a constant area of improvement and adjustments and testing and experimenting. And our other co-founder is our CFO and handles all of the financial and back-end systems that make visions possible.
It's perfect. Perfect. That's great. So, if I talk about these stages in business, like, do you have a defined growth stage you feel like you're in? Is there a way that you can communicate that?
I don't know that it is defined by like verbiage as developed by some like pretty remarkable folks. We are a very slow and steady growth organization. From 2007, we kind of just always went a little bit up and to the right,
Great.
We had a shocking jolt in actually April of 2020. Between that March 13th when we left the office and April 15th, every time the phone rang, I knew it was a client calling to say, I have to pause this. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen in my business. And we lost 46% of our revenue in less than a month.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
half the business
experience all at once. And then folks settled and a lot of them came back. And we went to market serving the businesses that, for better or for worse, were thriving in that environment. Some of our clients grew dramatically during that time. And we kind of had to pivot and find our space. And we actually ended up not significantly up at the end of the year, but 6 or 7% up year over year. And everything above zero was a big win and celebration for me after that experience in April. Yeah.
And when had you taken over?
I took the CEO role in July of 23.
Oh, okay. Okay. So at this stage, you had not taken on that role, but you guys were still in that mode of like, hey, we can just get stuff done.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden the bottom fell out.
Right.
Yeah,
and I
that's crazy.
The founders that when I got the CEO title, my job wasn't dramatically different. It was just a different title.
Sure. Well, and it was solidified and agreed upon because the roles were clear. right?
That's
So,
right. Yeah, it gave us a much more clear vision of those roles and responsibilities, and in some ways, it's about for me, it was about being validated and valued for what I was doing, which was well beyond business development at that
sure.
point.
You know,
So taking care of your people, I think that's a thing that the founders really focused on, and something that I carry forward for the agency as a whole is you got to take care of your people first. They'll take care of everything else, but you got to take care of them. That's the job.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I think what you went through is pretty common. We work with companies all the time where they're changing and they're morphing, and it's just natural that happens. But
Yeah.
somebody comes in, like we'll come in and we go, hey, you do realize like you're operating in this role and you're doing this, and so like if you just clarified that, it would make it a lot easier. And it's like this breath of fresh air where people go, oh, now we're all just clear on it. But you were already doing it. And so my recommendation, I don't know if you feel the same way, like did you have to go through that pain and maybe as long as you did, or would it have been better to have gone through the process of like, let's have open dialogue, let's talk about the roles and responsibilities, let's get that nailed down?
That's such a good question, and I don't know the answer. I think beautiful things come out of painful situations.
That's fair.
I believe Chris Doris is the mental toughness coach who always says things don't happen to you, they happen for you, right? Mm-hmm. If you can walk in with that mindset, I think if we look at any moment in time of our lives where we face something tragic or traumatic or even just very challenging or very hard, there are things that we benefited from in that you could not possibly have without having gone through that first. Mm-hmm. So could we like do everything on the front end and have been more proactive in the plan here? Yeah, of course. Yeah. But I think there are things you learn the hard way, and those lessons often stick in a way that other things don't. So yeah, I don't know. Is that a fair answer?
Oh, you tell me. You've lived it. I think there's real value in that pressure that you're talking about. The one thing I would say is business tends to give us enough pressure. And so the sooner we can get to resolution and understanding, the better. But that is the balance, right? And I think that's a great leader trait, is being able to recognize we are going through change. And is this necessary, painful change? Or is this something that I could expedite and we'll all understand it and feel the value? So that I don't think that's a cookie cutter answer where everybody has to do it the same way. Yeah. I know I've talked to so many CEOs and worked with so many that are like, hey, that took about 10 times longer than it should have. And that execution gap is real.
Yeah. Yes.
And so whatever you're working on, and
right. And every time that you are talking about how to structure the business, you're not building it, right? Not, so it's important to spend some time on these things, but there's also a wall where you have to say, like, we got to stop talking about working and go do some work now, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the other thing, is putting plans in place that you can actualize and operate, and you can test and learn. Yes. But you put a structure in for learning. That's the important part. Like, there's so many people who sub-optimize because they just keep making change and they can't help but do that.
Right.
And in reality, they are never executing thoroughly enough to know whether or not it worked.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
So let's go into that's, by the way, great story. I love that. I love that you and your partners, have a great business, and you guys have, been around for a while. You're doing great work. You've got a solid team. If I were talking about your growth stages, I would probably suggest that, the early stages operating your business where you're in it and you're a practitioner. And like you said, you started recognizing like, oh, this is how this business actually works. Then you go into this leading the business, which is I have a leadership team and I am doing this differently and I am hiring right. Then you go into transforming the business, and that feels kind of like what you have done and what you are in, and that's where you're focusing on process mapping and new services, and you're optimizing the existing services. And then there's this natural next step, which is scaling the business.
Mhm.
And you've been slow and steady, so I would bet you're between that transforming and scaling mode. And so if you're doing that, one of the things is making sure that the service offering you have is perfected.
Right.
Talk to us about SEO now. Let's go back to how that is changing, because
Yes.
that is one of those things. Some organization has built their entire company around, SEO and SEM, a highly efficient and effective advertising channel, changing tremendously, right?
All the time. Yes.
Yeah. So talk to us about like how you're changing your business to adapt to that.
Absolutely. So I will preface that while the recent changes with AI are dramatic and sweeping, huge impact changes, we have been through this a lot of times with SEO. The first time I was told SEO was dead was 6 weeks into this role, and I thought, like I just left my comfortable corporate job for a thing that's dead, right? And then I've been told that it's dead every year since, basically, this year included. There have been times that social media was going to kill SEO, and voice search was going to kill SEO, and now AI is going to kill SEO. We're still using Google, so I think SEO is still a thing. But I think our process can't be... Our actual execution of the work is never going to be perfected because we are constantly learning and adopting it. What we can perfect is how we deliver it, how we measure it, how we structure the project management to work in a way that is efficient and effective, even if I have to shift priorities based on a changing landscape.
I love that, Lyndsey. That's a classic. That sounds like a person who has mapped the process, understands the big changes, but recognizes there has to be customization in elements of it. And once you do that, you can push ownership of that to someone else because we all understand the process, right?
Right. And I am very lucky to be surrounded by a team of exceptionally talented and bright people. And I would say that I don't map things and tell them what to do. They tell me what needs to be done, and I get out of their way. That's my...
And you remove obstacles
That's
for
right.
them.
If they say, like, I need a tool for this or I need a template for that, that's what I do, right? That's where I think my role comes into play is, what do we need to make this all work? What's the structure and the framework and the systems that the business needs to provide each member of the team? And then then you go, right? Because they're all much smarter than I am.
Okay. I get it. But the ability to see the future and see what's coming next and then put a plan together behind that is a very real role. And that's where you focus your time, right?
Good chunk of my time is there. Yeah. I don't think I can see the future. I'm typically wrong, but I do like to build programs that have room for inevitable adjustments and changes, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I think what I bring for the team is I can make relatively quick but thought out decisions, and then I am very comfortable being wrong and changing them.
Good. That's interesting. In that environment, how do you keep from having too much change?
Yeah.
Where there is, because there's lots of options, right?
Oh,
and so if you're quick to decision, and you got a good gut, so you're right a lot of the time, but how do you keep from making too many changes in too short a period of time?
Yeah. So there's a few things I've done. Number one is, everybody likes slow and steady change. Everyone thinks they hate change, but actually everyone loves slow and steady change. So I will come up with 30 things we should do and then map them to a calendar to roll them out one at a time, month over month. So there's always a little tweak or a little change going on, but there's not 30 things all at once, brand new environment. Hope you can make it work. Bigger changes take more time for implementation. You've got to make more space for that. Smaller changes can then be plugged in between those larger structural changes. I think too, we're pretty good at feedback, both from our clients as well as our internal teams, so that we understand how these changes are impacting the individual. And if it's negative, do we need to adjust it, or do we need to explain it better, or do we need a better tool? But just instead of rolling something out and hoping.
How do you gather that information? Do you consider your staff to be the eyes and ears in connection to the client, or is there a more formal process where you gather information? Is it survey based? Do you do check-ins?
Yes.
All of the above. All of the above.
So, yes, with my internal team, we have there's weekly department meetings to talk through anything that's happening, how clients are responding or reacting to anything. I have an anonymous survey tool so that if they want to plug in anonymous feedback without saying like, hey, Lyndsey, your baby is ugly, right? They can just say, hey, Lyndsey, your baby is ugly, and I won't know who it is. And I also do check in with clients. We have run the anonymous survey system for clients. The response rates are pretty small. And we're a small company. I just don't need a big NPS program when I can just hop on a call with these folks and have a real human-to-human interaction, which is where we end up getting better feedback anyway.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, so you're adapting, you're changing continuously. That is kind of built into the ethos of the company. And you guys, what is the next stage for Digital Third Coast? Like, what's going to happen next?
I don't know. I'd like to continue our kind of growth. When I look at 26, I have a kind of a growth plan, not dramatic growth, but growth plan mapped out for how we get there. It's also really important to our agency, both because of who we are, but also because of this changing environment, that I'm attempting to implement a system in the new year to allocate real time and dollars to the experimentation and testing. That's
nice.
Something that has been very individually driven historically. And like I said, I'm very lucky to have all these brilliant minds around me. But to give space and time for, this is just a place where you test something and learn something and then share it with the rest of us so we can learn it too.
That's really smart. So stability, consistency, but innovation. And
Always.
So one of the things that we implement is called functional maturity. So looking at each of the functions in a business and looking at how mature they are. And, the last two stages are about learning strategy, which is actual experimentation, and then forecasting. Because most people, everybody tells me that they forecast, but the ability to forecast effectively is based on whether or not you can test and learn and know that the lever gets pulled in an action and there is a reaction.
Right.
And so that's really that alone, I would bet, like you, for certain services, you've gone fully mature in that offering. So that's awesome. That sounds great.
Thank you.
Smart 2026.
I hope so. I'm going to knock on wood.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, this has been super helpful just to understand your journey, how Digital Third Coast is growing and what your plans are. But I'd love to get a feel for, if I'm listening to this and I'm a CEO and I'm running a company, I probably, if I don't have a CMO, I certainly have a group that I lean on for marketing. So what would you say should be on my leaders list that I should be thinking about for the next quarter, the next year? Interested in any feedback you've got, especially with your area of expertise.
Thank you for the question. I die on the hill of the mission of the business, which is make a measurable difference. The best thing you could do for yourself, if it's not in place right now, is establish a baseline and a measurement plan for these efforts and put real metrics behind it. I love to go as close to revenue as I can when we're talking about marketing. The step before that is qualified leads, right? Then it's form fills and phone calls. Then it's traffic and visibility and impressions and impression share and click-through rates. There's 1,000 different metrics you can look at. And measurement is imperfect at best because of how many channels and devices someone might use. But that's the key. And then hold yourself and your team accountable for the progress month over month.
Amen.
So
that's so great, because you know how I was talking about those different stages of business, you know, from operating to leading to transforming to scaling. The operating level, the first thing is get the enterprise metrics down.
right.
And you'd be amazed how many people that we work with, they might be really good at the understanding operationally the numbers. But when you start talking about marketing, how many times have we heard the funnel is dead?
Yes.
You know, like, don't worry about the funnel. Well, guess what? Those funnel metrics work, especially at a rudimentary level. Yeah. I mean, I get that there are advanced levels, but we're not, you know, if you're running a business with, you know, fewer than 500 employees, you are probably not running an econometrics platform for media mix modeling.
Right.
I mean, like, you know,
right.
you should understand the funnel. And so that's a great point. So it's not necessarily I got to get SEO on my list. It is I got to know that when I start using SEO, here's what the metrics are to identify that channel's success.
100%.
That's great. That's great. You're really smart.
Well, thanks.
Lyndsey, is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, that's been lovely. I really enjoyed talking with you.
You're always great. Always great to see you, and we really appreciate you being on the leaders list.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.